Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are on the celestial plane we call life on planet Earth. I'm Brandon Sim. This is Chris Noble, and welcome back to another fun and exciting episode of Ancient Mysteries Unearthed. Today, we're going to be looking at a lovely, lovely anomaly as to why there might be pyramids all over the Earth, but perhaps there are still a few ancient relics that you may not have heard of. Chris, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Brandon. It's always fun to be here, and it's great to see you and our amazing audience checking in today. Thanks for joining us, everybody. It's going to be a weird one. Well, it's always a weird one, but it's going to be an interesting conversation today because we're going to get into a supposed completely hidden pyramid that is under quite a bit of ground and ice and underground, essentially up in Alaska. But then we're also going to get into why was it built there, the significance of these locations all around the Earth, and why these ancient structures were built there, probably with energy and other purposes in mind. So we're going to get into all that today.
So, Chris, during my curiosity adventures through, just my questioning of the world and everything, I have always looked at all these pyramids and all these ancient ruins around the world and how they seem to litter everywhere. And living in Canada, this vast space that spans, coast to coast, I always wondered, why is there no ancient monolithic structures that we can find here? And if so, are there? It was almost like the point of there must be some that are undiscovered or just not talked about. So I heard about this on an old Coast to Coast episode way, way back in the day about some pyramid that's hidden in Alaska. So why don't you tell us a little bit about this topic?
Yeah, and what you likely heard on Coast to Coast was Linda Moulton Howe's reporting on this Alaskan pyramid, this underground black pyramid, supposedly twice the size of the pyramids of Giza, or the Great Pyramid of Giza. So this whole situation has been around for a while. These accounts are actually coming from, I believe, the 90s for the most part, the 1990s. And so this discovery has obviously been around for quite some time, and there's so many interesting things about this story. And I've got a video that we'll play in a second off of Rumble that it condenses this whole incredible story of several whistleblowers coming out and talking to Linda Moulton Howe on the record about their experiences with this underground pyramid, and of course all the crazy secret classified operations that go around these phenomenon that do happen all around the world. And what's interesting, when you brought up, like, why don't we see this stuff, in Canada or, in the US? Of course, we do get a bit more in the US because we've got these things like Serpent Mound, the ancient mound builders of North America, but they're not like the relics we see in Egypt, as an example, or even, Central Mexico, or sorry, Central America. So why not in North America? Why not, especially in Canada, in the northern part of North America? I think a big reason is because of the Ice Age. We did have a massive sheet of ice, right, over top of all of this for about a kilometer thick, if not even more in certain areas. So I think that would have decimated most of the things on the surface, which is interesting that we're finding, supposedly, allegedly, this pyramid in Alaska, and it's underground. So maybe because it's underground, that's how it was able to stay safe for this amount of time. And I think we can really just start to get into this this first video that we've got here that I pulled up on Rumble. It's a little disclaimer. It's got a weird AI animation that's going to be kind of doing the narration. Yeah, it's a little weird to watch, but obviously if you're listening, it doesn't matter. And if you're watching, whatever, just kind of disregard that. And the content is really fascinating. It might sound quite fantastical, but it's actually summarizing Linda Moulton Howe's very long investigative journalism around this entire topic. And we're also going to listen to her and some of the interviews she did later on. So this first video is going to kind of summarize things. But I mean, in general, Brandon, I don't know if while I pull up the video here, what have you heard about this black pyramid in Alaska? Because I hadn't really heard much at all about this. And then I started to listen and it blew my mind.
Yeah. So what I've heard about this is that it's in a very remote area, that it messes with instruments and gives off energy. So that's what I've heard. This whole maybe pyramids are ancient power plants or multi-purpose structures, whether they be beacons, stargates, power plants, all of the above, several of the above. That's kind of what I've heard, if I remember correctly. And then as we go through this episode of the podcast, my citizen brain goes off, and I think, why haven't we heard about this? As far as ruins are concerned, is it like Bosnia, where they might be, so old that we have mistaken natural formations, actually, which are artificial or man-made or being made structures.
Right.
So that's kind of what I want to know, is maybe are there structures here that are unidentified? The ones that are allegedly here, why haven't we heard about them? And then what would be the benefits for covering these up? That's kind of my question with these, because I never really understand why we need to scrub our history of this, but that seems to be a common theme throughout a lot of these podcasts, are kind of either a complete scrubbing of it or a downplaying of these structures and their importance. So that's what I want to know.
Yeah, and I love that, Brendan. Or a complete rewrite of it too. Scratching it out, erasing it, or just altering it completely. There's so many things, like so many examples of that. So let's get into it. Great questions to kind of pose to our audience as well. So think about that as we watch these videos and listen to some of these audio clips around this really incredible topic, that even if it's not true, it's a fascinating story altogether, but I imagine there's at least slivers of truth here. So let's get into it. Here's the first video here that is going to kind of summarize this entire pyramid situation. Then we'll dive a little bit deeper. So let me know if you can hear it okay, Brandon.
And welcome to the Fringe Topics channel.
Here we go.
Today, we're diving into one of the most intriguing mysteries we've seen in a while. Imagine an ancient pyramid hidden beneath the icy terrains of Alaska, with tales of suppressed news reports, military intrigue, and potential extraterrestrial connections. Does this sound like something you want to know more about? Okay, let's look into the mystery of the Alaskan underground pyramid. On May 21st, 1992, China detonated an underground nuclear bomb that sent shockwaves through the Earth. These were recorded by seismometers in the United States and revealed unexpected geological anomalies north of Anchorage, Alaska. 6 months later, a U.S. Army counterintelligence officer, Douglas A. Muchler, stationed at Fort Richardson, was watching Channel 13 on NBC. He saw a news report that claimed underground scans revealed a large pyramid near Mount McKinley in Alaska. This caught his attention because, when he first arrived at Fort Richardson and was reviewing maps of the surrounding area, he noticed a section that was blanked out with no explanation. This area corresponded to the location mentioned in the news segment as the site of the pyramid. After the news segment ended, he went to his room to record the next broadcast on his VCR, but it didn't air again. The following day, Douglas visited the TV station to request a copy of the newscasts. However, the station manager denied ever airing such a story and stated no further information was available. As a bewildered Douglas prepared to leave, a station technician discreetly informed him that they had aired the story. However, 2 unidentified men had confiscated all the related footage, and the station manager instructed the staff never to discuss it again. Seeking answers, Douglas contacted journalist Linda Moulton Howe to investigate the story. A man soon contacted Linda, insisting on anonymity. He shared that his engineer father, after serving a lengthy career in the Navy, had been requested to work on a secretive project in Alaska, which emitted a tremendous amount of energy. His father's role was to understand how this pyramid generated such vast energy. He confirmed the pyramid was underground but could reveal no more due to the project's classified nature. Upon hearing Douglas and Linda's revelations, Bruce Pearson recounted a tale his father had once shared. Bruce's father, whom he opted not to name, joined the Navy following the Pearl Harbor attack. We'll refer to him as Bruce Sr. He served on the patrol torpedo boat 492 during World War II. In 1976, Bruce Sr. relocated his family to Alaska for a teaching position. In 1978, he met an Air Force pilot who had also served on a patrol torpedo boat during the war. After exchanging war stories, the pilot invited Bruce Sr. on a parts delivery mission. Assuming it was a routine supply drop for an early warning dew line installation, Bruce Sr. agreed. Dew line installations, or distant early warning line installations, were radar systems set up in the 1950s. They spanned from Alaska to Greenland to detect Soviet nuclear strikes, ensuring U.S. bombers could mobilize and ICBMs could launch in response. As their journey commenced, the pilot clarified that their destination wasn't a dew line, but a peculiar underground facility. Bruce Sr. inquired if it was a nuclear power plant. The pilot clarified it wasn't, describing an ancient black stone pyramid that began 150 feet underground, extending down to 750 feet. This structure, he stated, they can't figure out what it is or how it works. After a brief silence, the pilot says, "Look, this is all off the record. I'm not supposed to tell you this, but I was told that this thing puts out enough power to energize the entire state of Alaska and the country of Canada." The co-pilot added that as they approached the location, their helicopter's instruments would malfunction, necessitating the pilot to switch from instrumental flight to visual flight rules. True to word, Bruce Sr. witnessed the instruments going haywire. The helicopter's radar went dark, alarms starting going off, and the compass was spinning really fast upon nearing the site. He described their cargo as 3 very heavy, finely machined stainless steel cases. An escort aircraft shadowed their helicopter throughout the trip. Landing in a remote tundra, he observed a blockhouse, fuel storage depot, and a garage. He noticed a snowcat and few other vehicles. He also saw mineshaft elevators surrounded by electrical fencing and elevated guard posts with warning signs. Numerous armed guards in black uniforms flanked jeeps equipped with .50 caliber machine guns. A circling escort plane lingered overhead. The pilot told Bruce Sr. that he was not sure who the guys worked for, but assumed it was a 3-letter agency of some sort. After being unloaded and refueled, they departed. 6 years later, Bruce Sr. had lunch with the chief engineer from Bell Labs in Murray Hill, New Jersey. The engineer mentioned his vacation delay because Bell Labs personnel were summoned to Alaska's North Slope to examine a perplexing power station. The story only becomes more intriguing from this point.
I'm just quickly going to pause it here. There is a little bit at the end, but already it's interesting because we're going to get more into this, but the news clip that sort of triggered this response from a bit of the public, because it only aired once, as they mentioned this news clip, but this news clip apparently showed like the pyramid, the discovery of the pyramid, very matter-of-factly, and how like this is incredible because this is going to like literally rewrite history. They had all these apparently like diagrams on the news program itself, the broadcast, like showing the depth of the pyramid and this whole thing. It was quite a good story in terms of detail and information. And the guy that saw this, which I think we'll hear later on, but I'm not sure if it's going to be in some of the details that we'll go over, so I'll mention it now, is that he was with 40 of his friends at like a military bar basically, and they're just watching the TV. So he has 40 other people that all corroborate his story. And so again, there's so many things about this Alaskan pyramid story that when you do dig into it, this is the first video I watched when I was just scrolling through Rumble, because usually you can get some stuff you'll never find on YouTube there. And I watched it, especially with the AI, woman narrating things. I'm like, I don't know, this is a little insane. So I went in and I looked at all of Linda Moulton Howe's work, and it's literally verbatim exactly what she was reporting. And then I went into some of these other rabbit holes, and there's definitely at least corroborating stories and evidence to piece these together. So it is fishy, interesting, especially the location, that it happened to be all blacked out in the surveying maps. I mean, like that's
too convenient.
Yeah, right.
And you know what? I was thinking when they said about the newscast, and then he gets there and they're like, "We didn't air that." It's just so it's so common to be like when oh no, you must be hallucinating.
Gaslighting, man.
We're gonna question your character. When you think about Roswell, when Roswell happened, the newspapers reported it. It said alien spaceship crashed or
flying saucer
along those lines.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then the next, and then quickly that was changed to, weather balloon, space gas, swamp gas, Monkey and Balloon. They've they've changed their tune so many times
I know.
that and you see that especially of the days of yesteryear, these reporters being like, "Hey, I'm going to break this wide open." And then when they do, they get probably reprimanded. You hear that with anyone who ever finds anomalies in ancient fossils of extinct creatures, where they're like, "Hey, some signs in this show that maybe it wasn't as old as you said. Maybe we're looking at thousands, not millions, because of the tissues." And then they're like, "This is going to break the world." And then, sure enough, they get their funding pulled and dragged through the mud. So, and then if you look at journalism today, it's
What
it's
is
anything.
journalism today?
I think it's just repeat. I'm an actor. It's kind of seems like you just read the script these days. You're not writing the script. So uh, and that's what we see. And
Oh yeah.
I don't know, it's intriguing when you hear about that. Like, that's the stories that they broke that news cycle. And
It's time and time again, and this is, we're getting back to my personal beliefs is why that question you asked in the beginning, Brandon, like, why are these things always scrubbed from history? Why does this always happen all the time? So many different things. And it's to, in my opinion, the only thing that makes sense is to keep control over a large population of people, because when you learn about these things, you do learn about different types of technology that we're, being deprived of, different energy, different healing types of technology, different types of travel, teleportation, likely, a knowledge about our psychic abilities, basically all the things that empower us, we would learn about. And then some, also our connection to many extraterrestrial species, most likely, and so on and so forth. I mean, it would be pretty mind-blowing if all this got out there. But I think containing that information with a small group of people and not allowing the public to have that and having them believe a different narrative is probably a phenomenal way to control a large group of people, billions of people for that matter.
I just think of all the talk about the environment these days. And if there was an anomaly that could produce that much power, that it's not that it can produce, it's that it is producing. That's the story, is that they're like, whoa, you just got to shake your head and think like, if the purest of hearts, we'd want to share that kind of stuff. The love, the answer of love would want to share that. And it's just an interesting view. If there's a shred of truth to this, it's just an interesting view of why it might be scrubbed.
Well, let's keep going into it. We got a little bit left of this video, and it is gonna get into even more of this mystery. So let's keep going here.
A few years later, a woman contacted Linda claiming she was a remote viewer and had viewed the pyramid. During her session, she described a remote location with a mineshaft elevator, electrical fencing, and warning signs. A group of individuals entered the shaft, leading them to a staircase that descended to a platform. There, they accessed another elevator. Intriguingly, she mentioned that the individual leading the group seemed humanoid, but distinctly not human. This elevator took them about 150 feet, down to what appeared to be an observatory room filled with computer equipment and a sizable window. Through this window, one could observe one side of the pyramid and an intricate network of catwalks. She believed the pyramid's purpose was to harness energy from the Earth, functioning like a massive transformer. This energy was then emitted from the pyramid's apex, allowing UFOs to hover above and recharge. In the cold, remote stretches of Alaska, under the shadow of Mount McKinley, an enigma lurks beneath the Earth. China's nuclear test inadvertently uncovered a mystery that has drawn the attention of military officers, journalists, engineers, and even remote viewers. From unexpected TV.
So anyway, it's kind of just summarizing at this point. So again, this is a remote viewer seeing this. And here's the thing. If it's only going to be a remote viewer giving the information, you take that with a grain of salt, obviously. Now, I think there's a lot of legitimacy to that. And why would the military invest millions of dollars into it if it didn't?
Well, you can find literature on remote viewing on on declassified documents on government websites. So
And there's a lot of validity. It's been confirmed many, many times. So from what I understand is that remote viewing is usually the first thing that's done, and then you follow up on it physically to confirm it, and usually it's confirmed. So what this woman's doing is, I think that remote viewed this area is just confirming more of these accounts, these other accounts, these whistleblowers that we're listening to as well. It seems to all be, again, linking together that she would just so happen to have this similar information is pretty incredible. So just,
I watched Men in Black, the movie, recently again. When I was on a plane, it was on there, and I was like, like you hear about the drip exposures and stuff, and I was like, what a great film that was at the time. And watching it and seeing Will Smith, his character, the best part is like this whole like tearing down of his world into this whole other, actuality of like, yeah, aliens are here and we run like basically like alien customs, like a big spaceport, and if that would be a certain answer as to why we can't hear about it, if it was still in use by otherworldly beings. I mean, what a story that would be. I mean, I can just see the screenplay of this guy hearing this news report at a military bar, getting drunk with his macho buddies, and going here and them saying, no, you're insane. And then it leading this rabbit hole, and then him going out with his friends and like, basically viewing this spaceship, and no one believes him. And then of course,
this is the thing, Brandon. It's like, where do all these films come from? Where do these stories come from?
Hello, Steven?
Like, is it coming out of nowhere? Like we're led to believe, our imagination just, boo, all of a sudden these stories are there? Or is it because this is happening and has happened, and the only way to almost make it, I think, kept from the public is to put the label of fiction over it? Oh, well, that can't be possible because I saw it in a movie, and movies are make-believe and aren't real. Therefore, science fiction has to be fiction, it can't be real. And in fact, you watch more and more science fiction, oh my God, the truth, so far more truth in the fiction than usually the nonfiction, like the news or something. It's like, it's such a funny world. And you're absolutely right. These movies like Men in Black has a great example, because it's just, I think all you're seeing is these secret government programs and exactly what happens at them. Like, exactly.
Right. And then like, everyone fixates on those little like cockroach guys who are like with the coffee. And then they're like, that's not real. Or like, a big one for me was the Battle of LA. I think Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was in that. If you look up actually what the Battle of LA was during World War II, like something went down there. And what's the best way to make people be like, you mean like that movie, is to create this whole hoopla about it? Because they do often, like, they'll give you, I guess, maybe, and I'm just saying that this is always a maybe, everyone, let's put the tinfoil hat on, but off to the side to make it look cool for a second. If you, if you're like, okay, so something happened here, so let's take that grain of truth, that nuclei, and then we'll build a Hollywood movie around that. And make Will Smith in it, or Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. We're going to have him like jump out of a helicopter and punch a robot slug in the face. Everyone's like, obviously that didn't happen. Well, of course not. But something happened. Something might have happened. So, yeah, I mean, it is very interesting. And these stories that we hear, this pyramid underground, I mean, one of my favorite stories that, and I don't like the term conspiracy theory, so I'm just going to say one of my favorite tales is of the Earth having massive caverns and life within it. And is that really so far-fetched to believe? Now, that's the stepping stone. And then once you go down there, you hear about these old civilizations, the Hopi Indian, I think, talk about, the ant people, and the people of Nepal talk about Shambhala and things like that. You hear these stories from these old rich cultures of people who, they're trusted people. These are respectable people. I would love to go sit around and listen to the elders of these people and hear their stories, because they're just so inspiring, and if not, just good stories.
But stories with, I just can't help but feel there's truth. You feel the truth in your body. It's like, you just know it. There's more. There's more. We don't know what it is exactly, but we definitely know there's more going on.
Well, so you hear these stories, and then you find evidence of it with, we've done episodes on underground cities on this podcast. You hear the stories of underground pyramids that are producing energy, and Chris, everyone, by the way, is mounting another Egypt expedition to go look at ancient anomalies. So if you're interested in any of that, what year is that? Is that going to be 2024, Chris?
It'll be 2024, and it is a great example of that because we'll actually get into these energetic hotspots on the planet a little bit later on, and Egypt is one of them. Well, specifically Cairo, specifically the pyramids of Giza, are at one of those energetic hotspots. So you get to go and also feel. I really recommend, regardless if you're coming on my trip or going anywhere in the world. Stonehenge is another example. Apparently, Mount McKinley and this Black Pyramid is another one, and which is the tallest mountain in North America. Actually, relatively climbable, and have an epic expedition there. Either way, these places have a really powerful energy, and the only way all of the crazy stuff that we're talking about is going to actually start to cement and make sense, at least this has been my experience, is when you experience it. You go to these places, you actually have these encounters or these experiences. And this is why I listen more and more to whistleblowers, because I've had my own personal experiences, my own out-of-body experiences, my own crazy paranormal experiences, communing with sacred site experiences where I get like messages or downloads or crazy situations happening where normally you say it and it's going to, depending on the person, either sound like you're crazy, or maybe if you're watching this, you're a lot more open-minded to that and you might accept that. But either way, the knowledge is great, but we got to pair it with experience. And that's where I recommend, wherever you are in the world, try to find some ancient sacred site nearby. And if not, maybe an energetic hotspot, ley line, and we'll give you some tools of how to find that a little bit later on. So with that in mind, thanks for bringing that up, Brandon. And we got lots more to go through. So I want to quickly play a bit of an excerpt from the Linda Moulton Howe interview, where she was basically on a radio show describing her basically her analysis on this entire story. And I believe in this clip here that we're going to play is an audio excerpt from one of her whistleblowers. And I believe this is the whistleblower that saw the news broadcast and pursued it. And this guy also is a military man with extensive history and knowledge as well. So
Cool.
yeah, I'll get into that in a second.
And just touching back on Chris's trip, if you're a fan and a viewer and a supporter of the show, and you have any interest in supporting Chris or joining Chris, feel free to drop him a DM, reach out to the channel. That's what this is all about, building community. So don't be shy. Chris, his superpower is connecting people and reaching out to people and trying to remain with that actual genuine connection. So before the channel blows up too big, take advantage of it at this point in its era. Share it with your friends and get involved. So
thanks, Brandon. We've been going less than a year, to be honest, with this podcast, and we're almost at 1,000 subscribers. We're really getting close now. So if you're watching this and it's still under 1,000, let's help us get up there, because then we can get out to more people. And the beautiful part about the community side of this all is, and even the community in the comments, I just love the comments. We'll get into our favorite one, of course, as we do at every episode at the end of the show. And it's a community, I'm telling you right now. And when you go down these rabbit holes, as Brandon and myself can absolutely attest to, it can be a little isolating. It can be challenging. It can bring up a hell of a lot of emotions. It is a journey. It's a journey of awakening for yourself. And an awakening journey is like every hero's journey you've ever seen in every movie. It's beautiful. It's important, and it is challenging, because without the challenge, there's no good story anyway, right? So, you connect with people like us, connect with other people that are in the chats. It just makes you feel a little less crazy and a little bit more connected.
And you know what, to all of our viewers and people watching, you can believe in this stuff as long as you have an open heart and open mind. Everyone's reality is going to be different in a way. We're all kind of a connected consciousness, but some people are going to think all this is out with the bathwater, and really that's fine. I mean, yeah. You can believe whatever you want, because that's your own reality. So just be kind to people and their beliefs, because sometimes you kind of believe with some things, you don't with others. Just remain an open, kind heart, and don't try and judge and argue too much. Just observe and listen.
Yeah. Love, 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 baby. Here we go.
And when I arrived, one of the first things I did was go and get maps. because I wanted to prospect. So I went to the GSA office, and I picked up every map that made up Alaska. They were the Joint Operation Graphic Ground Maps, scale 1 to 250,000. And it covered the whole bedroom wall and the ceiling. I mean, these are really detailed maps. And I got to one of them that was on the western portion of the state, and it was whited out. There was a whole section about the size of a Christmas card, and it said, "This area not surveyed as of this date." And the first thing I thought was, that's ridiculous. I mean, they've had the Earth mapped since like the 60s. And I know Alaska was mapped out right after World War II. But anyways, it didn't make sense for this to be whited out. They're hiding something. In my mind, what I was into, counterintelligence, there's something there. But I had no need to know. Then I'm out processing, 1992. And we're sitting there. It was in late November, early December. And I'm sitting there in the orderly room with about 40 other people. And we were waiting for the last formation of the day. And we're watching the TV. A news program was on. And they started talking about this Chinese detonation of an underground nuclear bomb that was set off earlier that year.
May 22nd, 1992.
Okay. And they were talking about that, how big it was. And then there was a byline. And the story was about geologists around the world had been informed through the UN because China had told the UN they were going to do this. And so these geologists got together and they said, let's get the best recordings of the Earth's crust and mantle using the vibrations from this explosion. And what they found in this byline story was under Alaska, they found a pyramid bigger than the one in Egypt. They said they didn't know whether it was solid or hollow. They couldn't tell that, but they had the distinct outline of a pyramid.
And this was supposed to be where?
That whited out area, the area that showed on the TV, were south of Mount McKinley, and it was towards the west, near the Nome area. There's an area there that was whited out, quite a large area, really. And when I saw the news program, I mean, it just, in my mind's eye, I could see it just right where the whiteout area was. Well, I knew that the whole world has been surveyed. So why was this whited out? It don't make.
So why was it whited out? And you know, this is just a small clip.
Redacted.
Yeah, and here's basically it's a redacted part of the map. And just for the audience, that will be in the description below. The link to all these, of course, as always, are going to be in the description. Follow up it on yourself. You can listen to the longer version of this. For some reason, this particular recording has looped that interview 3 times, but it is about a half an hour to 40-minute interview with Linda Moulton Howe, and she plays again some of these interviews that she did. So it is, you can get into a lot more detail. There's an interesting part of the story that I haven't played today, and gets into another one of her whistleblowers who basically goes into military records because he is with the military and has access, and was really curious and wanted to basically learn more about this pyramid. Of course, he's in the archives trying to get the information. What happens? He's escorted out by some large, terrifying gentlemen. As always, that seems to happen with these things. And they're like, you don't need to know. He's like, but I can, and he apparently had high clearance. He's like, but I have high clearance. I can get this. They're like, nope, it's above top secret. You do not need to know. And so, just more interesting stories that all come around this. But moving forward now from the specifics of this place, this pyramid, and this location here in Alaska, what's the bigger story here? And I think we were kind of, it ties back into these questions you're asking in the beginning, Brandon, is why? You know, why cover this up? Why? And I think we can, one of the major reasons, and I'm sure there's many reasons, but one of the major reasons is energy. This is a free energy device. Clearly, it's ancient and it's still working. Come on, that's insane. None of our technology would do that. FYI for everybody listening to this. Like, the grid goes down, everything's down. Ain't like future civilizations would look at us and have no idea. Not only have no idea what we're doing here, but none of it would be working anymore. This is an ancient machine that is still functional thousands and thousands of years later. So I think that's number one. This is energy, and we'll get into how does this create energy. Well, we have some idea. Of course we don't know, but we have some ideas. So it's crazy stuff. I mean, what do you think about that, Brandon, as I get the next video ready here for everybody?
I just think of all, we talk about energy and we hear, I hear the term crisis a lot these days with lots of things, and one of them is the energy crisis, and how nuclear power is now starting to come out again as the safest form of renewable energy. And, whatever your views on that are, I'm no expert, but I do know that if the grid goes down, that our nuclear power plants would melt down because they do need energy to keep the safety of them going. So when I hear about this kind of thing, and I think about the work of Nikola Tesla, the great Nikola Tesla, and my mind always goes back to him thinking, what information did he uncover or rediscover or come up with? The earth is the giver of the energy, whether we're harvesting plutonium or splitting atoms or generating wind or solar or burning coal. It's all coming from the earth. And it sounds like these pyramids and these ancient structures were like, well, yeah, if you want to go about it that way, but the earth is producing the energy and you just have to harness it. And that seemed to be a lot of what Nikola Tesla was talking about too. So when I think about these kind of structures and these pyramids, perhaps they were just, maybe they were just directing the energy or containing it or making or translating it to a medium that you can actually harness. But the earth is so powerful. There's so much energy in the earth. Of course, it's generating power that can be translated into electricity, or perhaps electricity is not the grand end stop, and there's another form of energy that we're unaware of that perhaps celestial beings use. I don't know. My screenwriter brain starts going, and where does it end?
Where does it end? And as one of the core spiritual teachings, right? The more you know, the less you know, right? The more you learn, the less you know. And I think that's a humbling perspective that we always try to have on this channel. Is it's the more we're learning here, the more questions that end up coming up, the larger reality seems to get, the crazier things seem to get. And it's just, you're right. Maybe electricity is just scratching the surface of all the energy out there. Who knows? But I'm going to tap into now. This is a really basic, just quick little Google search I did. You can find this information all over the place. But there's basically a general consensus on most of these major energy vortex hotspots, if you want to call them that. Basically conjunctions on the planet where the earth energies that are everywhere and have their own currents, just like the currents in the air, the currents in the water. These energies have currents too, and they go all throughout the earth. You can even look at the earth again, as we know, it's a living organism. I think that is pretty acceptable for most people to believe. And as a living organism, it has many different energy spots, just like we have our chakra system. The earth has a chakra system. There's so much to get into here. So I'll just kind of simplify it today, and let's just look at the first little bit here that is going to show these more famous spots. And you're probably going to know about a lot of these when you see these. These are famous areas that most people on the planet recognize. And it's just to kind of get you thinking, wonderful audience, about, where could I go in the world to have an experience and actually, like I said, merge experience with knowledge. Well, here's a list of some places that you can try to, and then we're going to also look into an ancient way of measuring earth energies called dowsing. And there's a little quick video clip we'll look on that. So what we got here? Glastonbury, England. I'm not going to read the description for all these. Glastonbury is an amazing space. A friend of the show, Neil Gore from Portal to Ascension, is doing an amazing event in Glastonbury, I think this month, where he's bringing all the crystal skulls together. That's going to be crazy and amazing. Happening in Glastonbury. It's an energetic hotspot, so there's a lot of spiritual events that happen. And concerts, an amazing music concert, of course, very famous one in Glastonbury. You got Sedona, Arizona. This is a very famous spot, of course. A lot of UFO, a lot of ET contact experiences here. I think, and I don't know exactly, but I believe the Hopi are from this general area. I'm sure there's other tribes as well, and many other cultures that have, of course, lived there. But I believe the Hopi speak about the star people. Well, I know they talk about the star people in their creation myths. Well, this is a place where you can definitely connect with those star people. It's an energetic hotspot, to be sure. People have actually had apparently Men in Black encounters just going around Sedona in a supposed empty area with nothing going on, and all of a sudden they're approached by like a black car. You're like, please leave this area. And you're like, what's going on here? So there's a lot of interesting mysteries that I've heard about. Vedra, Ibiza, Spain. So Ibiza's got this, reputation as a party island, right? A lot of major music festivals happening there, a lot of DJ festivals. Yet on the other side, there's actually a very tranquil, peaceful side to Ibiza. And that's also just so happens to be another very well-known energetic hotspot. This one was a little lesser known for me, but very interesting. I would love to check that one out. Stonehenge, again, famous one. Many anomalies at Stonehenge. People do many different ceremonies and have very interesting experiences. There's been acoustic anomalies produced at Stonehenge that scientists have recorded. I mean, there's a lot of really amazing stuff that happens there. That's a huge energetic hotspot. Volcanoes in general seem to be energetic hotspots, specifically the one here in Hawaii. I mean, just the geology alone is absolutely gorgeous. And so on and so forth. The Great Pyramid, we've already touched on that. That's a huge one. That is also the geocentric center of the planet, which means it is the center of Earth's landmass. You got Mount Shasta in California, and that is a very sacred mountain. There's also very interesting stories about openings into the mountain that UFOs fly into all the time, or even maybe potentially secret, human aircraft, military aircraft, and also much more anciently, or much more, that's not really a word, but much more in our much distant past is these legends of the civilization of Lemuria, and supposedly Lemurians, the people of that, have a dwelling in Mount Shasta, supposedly. So there's a lot of interesting myth and lore around that. Tulum, Mexico, the Mayan ruins, I've been there. Amazing spot, extraordinary, relaxing energy there, really beautiful beaches. And Machu Picchu, another very popular one. A lot of people have many incredible spiritual experiences at a place like this. You're also very high up. There's a reason why these monks always go to these high mountains to have their meditation and their spiritual connections. So there's definitely something energetically going on with the earth. And the last one I'll leave for today is this Lago Atitlan, which is interesting. Sounds kind of like Atlantis, maybe, but that's in Guatemala, and another energetic hotspot here in Guatemala, and so on and so forth. I'll put the link to this in the description, but we've got lots more to go through here. And yeah, I mean, this is just to sort of start the, take it into your own hands, people. Like, go out, and we love talking about this stuff here. Like, we're obviously passionate about this. Like I said, though, when you can actually get out to these sites, if you're in the US listening to this, you've got so many of these amazing mounds everywhere, or these sacred energetic hotspots all over the place. If you're in England, you've got them. If you're in Europe, you've got them. If you're in Asia, if you're in Australia, no matter where you are, you've got places to go explore. So one of the things that we can do to measure these earth energies, which are still challenging to find, let's say, grounded evidence-based research that does, and we do have some, and I'm going to show it at the end of this episode, an amazing scientist who's got great evidence to support earth energies. But anyway, we're going to look at this form called dowsing. Dowsing is a pretty old way of measuring, supposedly to allegedly measure these earth energies. And I'm going to show you a clip from the Smithsonian channel, which I'll show very quickly because I don't know if that'll run us into some copyright or not. But regardless, I wanted to show the Smithsonian because the Smithsonian specifically are the debunkers, which is fine if you need that. But they're always skeptical. They're always debunking what I believe are very true.
Well,
theories.
Their their beginnings were exploring the mound builders of the Mississippi Valley.
Oh
So
yeah.
it wasn't always the case. It's
No.
almost like the more they discovered, the more they're like, we need to start shutting it down.
Just like our episode on a couple of episodes we've done on giants, and many more of those to come for you, beautiful audience. I know it's one of your favorite topics, and the Smithsonian's famous for being the ones to just, okay, nothing to see here, folks. Did we say they're giants? No. That's just a couple of decades of newspaper articles. We'll just ignore that. No worries. So let's watch the Smithsonian talk about dowsing, because I gotta say, they don't really debunk it. If anything, they accidentally kind of support it, and that's really cool. So let's take a quick look at that, and yeah, hopefully I don't have to edit it out.
Dudley Smith is the warden of the Roll Right
So
Trust.
here we go,
By day, he's a plumber.
and I'm just gonna.
But in his spare time,
Here we go.
Ron Dudley Smith is the warden of the Roll Right Trust. By day, he's a plumber. But in his spare time, he's something far more mystical.
Hello, Ron.
Hiya.
You must be
Clive.
Ron the Dowser, I can
I
tell.
certainly am. Pleased to meet you.
Ron thinks he knows why the stones were built here. Natural energy lines.
Running around the globe, everywhere, are energies that pulsate through the Earth. This particular place is on, we call it a power spot, where energies seem to accumulate, come into like a hub, and then flow off into other
So
places.
is this the same what they call ley lines? Is that the
The
same
ley
thing?
lines and ley energy all come into it. We've got an energy line running through here that starts in the Isle of Wight, goes through Chichester Cathedral,
Yeah.
goes through the Effingham White Horse,
Right.
comes through here.
I like to think I'm open-minded, but an ancient energy superhighway feels a bit of a stretch.
So you're standing here, I know you're concentrating on talking to me, but are you feeling the energies?
Not at the moment because it's
No.
too bloody cold. Around these stones here is a band of energy. Would you like to try and find this?
Yes, but I doubt I'm going to be as good as you are.
Well, I don't suppose you will be because I've been doing this for donkey's years.
All right.
So take two of those rods.
Yes, okay.
With these two metal rods, using the medieval technique of dowsing, Ron tells me I should be able to detect the spiritual powers running around the stones.
I'm throwing you in at the deep end here. You've
Yeah.
never done this before. So,
No.
so just walk forward, tune into this energy
Yeah.
that's coming from the stones and ask for your rods. You see, and there we go.
Yeah.
Now, are you doing that or has that done it by itself?
It's done it by itself.
There we are. Now that that's done, now just walk out slowly now, just to show that something is happening through your rods or through you, because
Yeah,
this
no,
is
it's
happening through you.
This is extraordinary. I've
Again,
discovered
walk
a
in.
new power that I didn't know I had. Is it a
Well,
power or is it a sensitivity?
As far as I'm concerned, 80% of population can do this if they're
Yeah.
interested.
Oh, and there's me thinking I'm special.
I love that because it's obviously more mainstream programming, and yet look at this guy. He's like, oh my god, these rods they're doing it on their own, and it's genuine. You can tell he was not at all expecting it to be. He's obviously he's pretty skeptical about it. Fair enough. And I remember how I used to be with that stuff. And look at the phenomenon. You really see these rods affecting, and it's interesting, as you can see, they're walking in and out of the stone circle. So there's obviously a phenomenon.
I like to think I'm pretty open-minded, but the earth energy highways seemed like a bit of a stretch. No. I like to think I'm open-minded, except I'm going to close me mind.
Well, that's it, right? Like, this is what I love about I love mainstream for this stuff, man. Like, it just cracks me up when oh god, I never watch the news, but like if I'm at the laundromat and I see it on the TV, and like, you know, you'll see stuff like that all the time. Well, I like to think I'm open-minded.
But at the same time, you're all hogwash.
It's good stuff.
Brought to you by Doobadoo.
Yeah. Oh man. So one of the I could rap on that for a long time. One of the funniest things about these magical spaces, and this is going to be a phenomenon that even the open-minded Smithsonian host would I think is absolutely insane.
Seems like a bit of a stretch.
Hey, come on now, Chris.
This ancient practice that's happening right as I hold it, I'm not going to say it works or not, because I'm open-minded.
Very open-minded. So this is going to be a little excerpt from NASA, big conspiracy theorist here, NASA. And what I want to show are a phenomenon of natural portals that happen in space, in reality, and absolutely happen on planet Earth. It's not talking about the ones that happen on Earth, but the way I'm connecting this is that I believe these energetic hotspots, these vortexes, and other places too, but these places where energies converge to create an apex, to create a vortex of a surge of energy, and when there's geometry built around it, like a stone circle, but not the only thing that has to be built, but one example is a stone circle. Also, when you look into things like Stonehenge, why did they bring rocks from Wales all the way up to Stonehenge? And it's the same thing in Egypt. Why did they bring granite from Aswan, 1,000 kilometers south on the Nile, bring it all the way up to Giza to build the Great Pyramid? It's because the rocks are super important because of what's in the rocks. The type of rock is very, very important. So why? I think it's because it interacts with the energy of the land in that area. So what do? You've got energy on the earth. You've got a geometric pattern to harness it using a mineral, a type of rock that also interacts in a synergistic way. And to do what? I believe a whole bunch of things. And one of those things may have been to create a portal, believe it or not, to another place on the planet, inside the planet, another planet. Who knows? Maybe that's why they would align them to different astrological alignments. Why? So that they could travel to those places in this portal. Anyway, those are all ideas. Putting them out there to you beautiful people. And then let's watch this little video from NASA explaining the phenomenon known as natural portals that actually happen, which is crazy, and I love it. So here we go, folks.
Hidden magnetic portals around Earth, presented by Science at NASA. A favorite theme of science fiction is the portal, an extraordinary opening in space or time that connects travelers to distant realms. A good portal is a shortcut, a guide, a door into the unknown, if only they actually existed. It turns out that they do, sort of. And a NASA-funded researcher at the University of Iowa has figured out how to find them. We call them X-points, or electron diffusion regions, explains plasma physicist Jack Scudder of the University of Iowa. They're places where the magnetic field of Earth connects to the magnetic field of the Sun, creating an uninterrupted path leading from our own planet to the Sun's atmosphere 93 million miles away. Observations by NASA's Themis spacecraft and Europe's cluster probes suggest that these magnetic portals open and close dozens of times each day. They're typically located a few tens of thousands of kilometers from Earth, where the geomagnetic field meets the onrushing solar wind. Most portals are small and short-lived. Others are yawning, vast, and sustained. Energetic particles can flow through the openings, heating Earth's upper atmosphere, sparking geomagnetic storms, and igniting bright polar auroras. NASA is planning a mission called MMS, short for Magnetospheric Multiscale Mission, due to launch in 2014 to study the phenomenon. Bristling with energetic particle detectors and magnetic sensors, the 4 spacecraft of MMS will spread out in Earth's magnetosphere and surround the portals to observe how they work. Just one problem: finding them. Magnetic portals are invisible, unstable, and elusive. They open and close without warning, and there are no signposts to guide us in, notes Scudder. Actually, there are signposts, and Scudder has found them. Portals form via the process of magnetic reconnection. Mingling lines of magnetic force from the Sun and Earth crisscross and join to create the openings. X-points are where the crisscross takes place. The sudden joining of magnetic fields can propel jets of charged particles from the X-point, creating an electron diffusion region. To learn how to pinpoint these events, Scudder looked at data from a space probe that orbited Earth more than 10 years ago. In the late 1990s, NASA's Polar spacecraft spent years in Earth's magnetosphere, explained Scudder, and it encountered many X-points during its mission. Because Polar carried sensors similar to those of MMS, Scudder decided to see how an X-point looked to Polar. Using Polar data, we have found 5 simple combinations of magnetic field and energetic.
So, I mean, even just looking at this symbol, I mean, it looks like a little symbol to me, right? Because I see if you take that horizontal image we're looking at, and for the listening audience, it looks like almost like a wine glass, but just the top, like the cup part of the wine glass.
It looks like a wine glass. If you had the top of it without the stem, and then just had a mirror in between the two.
Exactly. And then if you flip that so it's more vertical, you see this. It's like some people call it a God self icon. This symbol of 2 almost arms going up, 2 legs going down, is seen throughout the ancient world all the time, and it actually might correlate with solar flares. And this is a electromagnetic phenomenon that we're witnessing with this whole portal situation. So it's interesting that it makes that shape. I don't have nearly enough knowledge to know the depths of what that really means, but it is really, really interesting. And I want to pull up one last video for today's episode with scientist John Burke, because then it's going to connect all these dots, because he's going to talk about all these sacred sites and what is the major phenomenon that he can record physically, measurably, scientifically, is surges in electricity, and they're all happening at these X points, but they're X points on the planet, right? So we're starting to see these commonalities, right? They're NASA's measuring X points in space. John Burke's measuring X points on Earth, as above, so below. Kind of makes sense to me. So I will pull up that video. It's just interesting to hear from NASA, because they don't really give us much, if anything.
But think of what they're saying here, dude. Like, right? Portals that are shortcuts. I mean, like, we all kind of know this, but they're not saying, like, this is not deep theory into black holes. They're talking about our upper celestial atmosphere, basically. So
yeah, it's pretty crazy. And here's the thing too, is that they're giving, like, these little nuggets of information. They just said that mission launched in 2014, to go search for these portals. What if they found them? Where did they go? What happened? Of course, we're not going to hear any of that fun stuff, because this is NASA we're talking about. It's not like they're a public entity that's supposed to tell you everything. Of course, they don't at all, unfortunately. But this last video, I digress. This last video is actually hosted by my friend Alan Steinfeld, who's actually been a guest on the podcast earlier this spring, I believe. Alan's podcast that we did here on Ancient Mysteries Unearthed was all about extraterrestrials, other dimensions, the imagination realm, or the imaginal realm. Alan's got a lot of cool stuff, but in this, Alan's interviewing John Burke, because John is no longer with us in this physical reality. He has transitioned a couple of years ago now, but he also has a great bit of work that he contributed to a really amazing documentary series called The Pyramid Code. And I highly recommend, if you're a little newer to this Ancient Mysteries world, check out the documentary, The Pyramid Code. It was on Netflix, I believe, but now it's free on YouTube. And John Burke, among many others, Dr. Robert Schock, my good friend as well, and other people are on that documentary. And that was one of the first ones that really woke me up to these incredible mysteries. And John Burke's research does go for me way back. So it's nice that we can end today's episode with this bit. Of course, we'll share a bit of our thoughts after we watch this. And I'll just show a couple of minutes of this interview. It's an 18-minute interview. Again, it'll be in the description. Highly recommend checking it all out, because they go into real depths, as you can, of course, imagine with John's research. I believe John Burke has measured over 1,000 ancient sacred sites worldwide. So this guy is, and if not 1,000, it's many, many hundreds. He's also dabbled in the crop circles as well. And you'll hear him. This guy is not a woo-woo guy. This is a pragmatic scientist, very based in physical reality, hard evidence kind of guy, and I do appreciate that, just to be able to mix it in with everything else we've shown you today. So let's look a bit at John Burke And what we're talking about here are earth energies. What are they? What are these earth energies? What is that pyramid in Alaska really working with? And this is going to be a bit of an insight that John can give us.
The science behind sacred sites, crop circles, the ancient monuments, and what it is that makes them special, magical, and particularly sensitive to you. Thank you, John, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You've taken instruments, you've measured what it is that makes something a sacred site.
I actually don't use the word sacred for that reason. So I believe that in most of these cases it was a very physical purpose and a very physical action that occurred there more so than a spiritual one. But
there meaning places like Stonehenge,
sure.
Salisbury Hill, and
pyramids, both Egyptian and Mayan, North American Indian mounds.
So you bring instruments to these locations, and what is it that you find?
What I find is that in particular places and also at particular times of day, it becomes clear that over and over again, the ancient builders of these structures primarily chose the types of geology, if you will, places where the geology naturally concentrated the normal electromagnetic fluctuations that take place on the earth every day, everywhere. But they're more concentrated and stronger in some places. And over again, those are the spots where the ancient builders chose to place these structures. One that's lesser known, which is these rock chambers, or dolmens as they're technically called. They exist from England to Italy, but also throughout the northeastern U.S. as well, and were built over a 3,000-year period. So they're clearly not a cultural phenomenon. They've been built by many different cultures in many different places. The roof, though, is usually flat stone slabs, often very magnetic rock. And what I've confirmed is it does stratify the air in here electrically. There'll be negative air towards the top, positive air towards the bottom, and pulses taking place.
You're saying the land underneath that whole area is conducting high electrical magnetic charge.
Well, let me show you exactly. This particular one, which is in Mount Ninham Park in New York State, is located on a mountain that has high magnetic readings. And it's in an intersection of two zones on this mountain. Everything to my left and downhill here has got a much lower but very stable magnetic reading. As soon as you get uphill to my right from this spot, the readings start to rise dramatically and you start to get a lot of change. This is actually one of the more modest chambers. It's not too high, got to crouch in here. But this is a particularly energetic chamber. In fact, a photo taken by one of my colleagues on infrared film, there was nothing visible to the naked eye, but when the infrared film was developed, it showed a floating ball of energy right about here where my right hand is, just suspended in midair, with tentacles almost emerging from it. It looks highly electrical. Wherever you have.
So that's just scratching the surface. John's work really, like, it's just a couple examples. So what he does is he goes to these sacred sites. He doesn't like to call them sacred sites. I definitely do, because they are sacred. I bring the spiritual into that because that's been my life experience, and I can't separate the difference because they're so connected. So as you can see, John, from a perspective point of view, he's not connecting with these in any spiritual kind of way. And I love that, because he still measures energy and he still measures the phenomenon of electricity. And like he just mentioned, he uses different types of cameras, and they can see these energy on, like, infrared as an example. And they've got this big ball of electricity that literally appears in these photographs. He can measure differences in electricity from the top of these sites to the bottom of these sites. He can measure an undulation, a pulsation of energy. This is all physical measurements that are taken. He's a professional scientist and has a professional gear. And so what I love about his research is he is not really coming at it from the perspective I am, because I recognize them as a sacred site and I do want to have a spiritual connection to them. He's going, there's something happening here. Everyone else seems to say something's happening here. I'm going to go in and see for myself with my instruments, and simple as that. And what his instruments say is there's energy. So to sum it all up for everybody, this is really bringing it back to the Alaskan Pyramid. And why are these things covered up? Why are they not discussed? It's energy. It's a form of energy that's free. It's extremely powerful. And guess what? It's our planet. Our planet doing what our planet does, which is be a beautiful, organic, living being that just gives off everything we could ever want, all the abundance we'd ever need. And this is pretty crazy, man. This is where the Hollywood scripts come in. How could you not want to make an entire TV series off of everything we just talked about today, if not several movie franchises too?
Well, the story doesn't necessarily just come from the amazing part of this anomaly in the energy. It does come from this force behind the truth that is, covering it up. That's where it all comes from, right? I mean, E.T. was about the alien, but it was also about the government trying to take the alien away and do experiments on it and hide it from the public, right? And take away the love between this creature and this little boy, and it's something that's so simple as wanting to go home. So, the story is why. It is the why, really. The why do we not? Why is this not public knowledge, right? Because you're not gonna, you're not gonna see a story about how a nuclear power plant works. That's really going to be just a documentary. The why is, why did they cover up Chernobyl, and what was the reality between what was actually happening and what we were told, and that was a great miniseries and showing the struggles behind this and the cover-ups. That's what makes the story. So, and that is the common theme between a lot of these things. Hence why you hear conspiracy theory, when in fact, trying to look at these anomalies and these structures and figure out the why, that's not a conspiracy. To conspire is to work with a group of people to usually deceive. So it's truly used in the wrong terms. So if you're interested in these and people are calling you conspiracy theorist, just remember that, investigating and having wonder and believing in a sort of, I like to call it the magic of the world, which, really magic is just something that we don't quite understand, I really believe. That doesn't make you a conspiracy theorist. You're not trying to conspire to hide anything. You're trying to uncover things. So stay curious and stay wondrous, because at the very end of the day, if nothing here is true and it is all to be thrown out with the bathwater, your mind will be expanded and your creativity has been improved, and your logic and philosophy muscles are being used. So I think it's ultimately a good thing.
Absolutely. I completely agree, Brandon. And this is why it comes back to the community and just being able to connect with other people that are, curious and open-minded. And, that with that in mind, I'm going to have to bring up our lovely comments and pull up one of our favorite ones here as I've just been kind of scrolling through, and I'll bring up this one right here. So this is gonna I'll just screen share so we can all see it. So again, if you're watching this on YouTube or Rumble or listening to this on Spotify, wherever it is, wherever you're consuming this content, we'd love for you to leave a little bit of a like, a review if you can, or a comment. Depends on the platform, of course, that you're listening to this or watching this on. Any way that you can support us, though, is always appreciated. So we always do a little bit of a shout out, specifically from our YouTube at this point, but that will expand, don't you worry. And I'm going to pull up this one from Jen Johnston 3137. Thank you, Jen. I'm going to just put that out there as your first name, and I apologize if that's not correct, but it doesn't really matter. Jen Johnston 3137 said, "Hey, giant head on Mars. Could it be natural that it was then manipulated? I've also said we started on Mars and ruined it already." Which, hey, I can totally appreciate that. And I'm going to assume Jen is, well, either way, Jen's, I think, onto something. Jen Johnson 3137. That there's a lot of theories about that with Mars. Why was it the god of war? In our ancient mythology, why does it have literally the isotope signature that only comes from a nuclear blast in the atmosphere still in Mars?
Well, we touched on the remote viewing as well, and
Yep.
There's those documents. I think it's on the FBI website, talking about remote viewers going back in time on Mars and sitting in a giant pyramid with this like race that's basically in stasis, saying we're trying to wait out this storm that was brought on by what we have done. So we like, that's the story from mythology, is that Mars was, god of war. There was something that went on there. It sparked our imagination. War of the Worlds, once again, a warring nation.
Yeah. And here's the thing is, without getting too much into this, because we could make about 18 other episodes on this topic, is our solar system is and was very active. And there's a lot of really amazing evidence that actually comes from quite a lot of like hardcore academics and scientists that support that a planet was blown up in our solar system. And by blown up, it was not natural. It was absolutely induced by some form of war, some sort of cataclysm.
Right. I mean, and for those of our viewing and listening audience, I won't tell you where it is, but I'll let you use your imagination. So after Earth, there's Mars, and then in between Mars and Jupiter, there seems to be something. So why don't you take a look at that? The ancients used to call it the hammered, I think, circlet or hammered bracelet. To hammer something is to destroy it. There is evidence out there. So
a lot.
Jen Johnson, great comment. I love that you're still putting and this is what I love about our viewers, because we're trying to find the logic. She's not saying necessarily that it was all like manipulated and constructed. Maybe, I interpreted that as could have been ancient artwork. We hear about the Badlands Guardian here in Canada out by Medicine Hat. Go look at that on Google Earth. Tell me what you see. We think about places like Mount Rushmore and other places where we have done art. We had to choose that site. Even the great sculptors used to say that the statue was always in that marble, that they were just uncovering it. So wow. That's a very interesting, beautiful comment. Thank you so much for your viewership, Jen Johnson. And if you want to have your comment featured, throw a hot take down. Let's get it going, guys. Participate in our community. We love y'all. Thank you so much for viewing this. Thank you so much for listening to it. Thank you so much for having a curious, open mind. I like to think I have an open mind. And it's been a lot of fun. Chris, thank you so much for putting this beautiful episode together. You're just an amazing person with just such a wealth of knowledge and just a wonderful well of love as well. So.
Well, thank you, my brother. I appreciate that, Brandon. And it is so much fun co-hosting this with you. It wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for you. And of course, it would not be happening without our amazing growing audience. So thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Ancient Mysteries Unearthed. And we will catch you on the next one. Until next time.